After having heard the conversation going on before entering the stage, I'm quite humble, but fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really proud to be here today. And also, thank you for the introduction. I should probably introduce myself a bit as well, because I have been Under Secretary General of the UN and Executive Director for UNOPS for 4 years. And this is a very unique organization in the UN. And as I speak, I think you will understand more why I point this out up front. Our mandate is to help people build better lives and nations build peace and sustainable development. So it was told already that my background is politics. It is also in development and business. I've done development for more than 10 years, but also, as mentioned, as a Norwegian, been member of the Norwegian government, holding 5 different portfolios under 3 different prime ministers. I was also in business, in technology, also in finance at executive level. I've been in media, and I've done real estate. So I bring this mix of private and public experience into my position that I currently hold. UNOPS is a service provider. We work with partners in both public and private sector. We work with the other UN agencies, international finance institutions. We work with national governments, foundations, as well as private companies. We run pretty much like a private business, of course, pro bono or a non-profit, and are all ready to build new partnerships with any private or public entity that see an opportunity to help build a sustainable future for more underserved people in countries outside the OECD. So we are part of the UN that translates policies into action on the ground. Our scope of work is vast. And I think I should give you some examples just so you understand. It includes building roads and schools, health clinics in places like Afghanistan and South Sudan. It includes helping governments deliver health care to their populations through vast medical procurement in places like Honduras and Guatemala. It includes developing off-grid renewable energy projects covering nations like we're now doing, for example, in Sierra Leone in Africa. It includes managing large-scale grants across a country like Myanmar. I could add a number of examples to this, but in total, we implement around 1,000 projects per year, and we work in more than 80 countries. Last year, our turnover was around $1.8 billion. And the demand for our services are growing at a significant pace. To manage this, efficient processes are critical. And this is why we are looking for new opportunities, because the challenges are so vast. And we look for opportunities that technologies like AI and robotics represents. We don't even use the word AI in the UN. We talk about frontier technologies. We are using terms like transformative, paradigm shift, the 4th industrial revolution. We're still looking for much of the same. These technologies have the potential to deliver real and meaningful changes, not only in the future of work, but to the future of our societies. And we're trying to see how these technologies can help deliver a more sustainable future to people that are yet underserved. I don't know how many of you have heard about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals or the Agenda 2030. We're talking about an agenda that aims to implement these 17 goals in 12 years. So what are they about? All the member states of the UN came together and promised that they will work towards the Agenda 2030, producing a future of no poverty, zero hunger, quality education, equal rights for women, access to health services. You hear, it's an ambitious agenda. We cannot continue working as we have done. We need to do things different. This agenda requires innovation, resources, and talents that the private sector offers. We need to work together to solve the world's problems. So, fellow delegates, much of the UN's work is funded on the member states through what we call official development aid. These contributions are made to further support the development, humanitarian and peace and security objectives of the entire community of nations. It goes to protecting and upholding peace around the world. It helps to shelter and feed civilians in time of war and famine. It provides maternal health care, vaccinations, and gives children safe spaces to live and learn. And the official development aid, ODA, is as relevant as it always has been. Yet, at the same time, the world's challenges has never been so complex and interconnected. I don't know if you have reflected on these numbers, but last year, more than 71 million young people were unemployed. 570 million new jobs may be needed before 2030. Urbanization is speeding up. More than 50% of the world's population now live in cities. And it's the young who are moving the fastest. And more than 880 million are thought to be living in slums in developing countries. Estimates for investments needed have been made. They range from 3.3 trillion to 4.5 trillion per year, mainly for basic infrastructure, food security, climate change, health, and educational challenges. And you hear that the $150 billion official development aid will not do. They will not do. The average shortfall for developing countries is around $2.5 trillion. Numbers that are very high, and it's clear that to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals will require a step change in how governments mobilize national resources to deliver services to the citizens, and the levels of both public and private investments in all countries. We know that traditional ways of financing development alone are insufficient. Yet past experience shows that private capital will not either be able to solve the world's problems alone. The governments must, as I mentioned, take ownership to mobilize national resources and steer, incentivize, and encourage private sector investments into sustainable development. Aid can be an important facilitator. Aid must be used in a smart and catalytical way to support national planning, build solid government and governance systems, and encourage private capital flows. Used smartly, aid can reduce corruption, not drive it. It can be used to reduce risk levels to a point where large private funds can defend investing. But what has all this to do with AI? I think many of you already have asked that question to yourselves now. When funding is such a critical challenge, it's even more important to make the best use of the resources available. This requires focus on innovation, on finding new ways of being more effective, be more efficient, and many studies suggest AI will outperform humans in many activities in the near future. So can we use these technologies to reinvent the future of work? Can they deliver smarter, better, and faster services as well as jobs? Can automation allow us more time to focus on quality in how to solve core needs and services, and even enhance the meaning behind and impact of our work? The potential is undeniable. Still, many think of job losses when the topic of digital workforces arises. I've been a former politician, so I would say it's easy to understand. Transition is always hard, maybe even harder for politicians. This has been the focus throughout major technological advances in human history, when it's time to kill your darlings. Experts hold wildly opposing positions when trying to understand the benefits over the risks. Some research heralds the new jobs AI can bring, stating the technology will result in more jobs than it eliminates. Yet, we should not ignore those who perceive AI as an area in urgent need of regulation. In this world of possibilities, from so many perspectives, I see the real challenge as focus. Standing here today from the UN, when I hear others talk, I immediately jump to the role AI could play to help accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is my focus. I think it also should be yours. The Sustainable Development Goals are our goals as a society, and our children's and those of future generations. Given the many causes of poverty, it's clear there is no silver bullet. But when I think of the possibilities of AI, my mind immediately turns to the world of potential. Can we predict the effects of climate change, natural disasters, or food shortages with greater speed and accuracy? Can we understand the really deep problems of human decision-making using insights from data and come out with specific solutions in healthcare, energy, and cleaning up our environment? Can we pinpoint the regions most in need and better inform decisions in emergencies? Of course, fixing poverty first requires knowing where it occurs. And over recent years, AI solutions have been attempting to help with exactly these challenges. In many developed nations, household surveys and census data can be used to identify poor neighborhoods. But this information isn't readily available in developing countries. What's more, gathering this kind of data on the ground can be slow, difficult, and costly. But over recent years, scientists have begun using the constant stream of photographs taken by satellites, particularly those that show our planet at night, to get a feel of global economic activity. Researchers can then combine high-resolution satellite imagery with powerful machine learning algorithms to predict poverty in Nigeria, in Uganda, in Tanzania, Rwanda, or Malawi. I could name several countries, and AI has reached into the agricultural sector of UN work as well. According to the World Bank, global poverty and agriculture are intrinsically linked, with 65% of poor working adults making a living through agriculture. Their research found that investing in the agriculture is up to 4 times more effective in reducing poverty than investing in other economic sectors. Really important information. AI can also help predict the path of storms and track the spread of diseases, both of which hit poor communities especially hard. But whatever AI tools governments, policymakers, and humanitarian organizations use, it's important to use them where they do the most good. So what kind of role can the UN play to ensure that these transformative technologies work for society as a whole to harness the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, without deepening economic divides? At UNOPS, with our partners, we develop innovation centers to support young innovators. They are intended to spur the entrepreneurial ecosystem, developing local knowledge, and, important, address local challenges. For example, earlier this year, with the government of Antigua Barbuda, we opened the country's first innovation science center. And you have to remember that was only weeks after hurricanes almost made Barbuda flat. They still wanted to invest in the Innovation Center. We partnered with MIT and Harvard. We're providing a dedicated space for children and young entrepreneurs to explore and learn about technology, with a particular focus on developing solutions to the challenges associated with climate change. It is our belief that if we can connect people with the tools they need to innovate and learn, everyone will benefit. Investing in local knowledge is an example of the shift we see in development work, from providing direct assistance to laying the groundwork for indigenous knowledge, capacity, and ingenuity to be fully harnessed in an effort to stimulate sustainable economic growth. What we do and how we work, how we can facilitate, be the catalyst and connector to promote and produce local growth. Governments can play a mobilizing role in helping to make this happen, as in the case I mentioned from Antigua Barbuda, and they experienced the threat of the climate change firsthand and saw that they needed new innovative solutions. At UNOPS, we see our role as being there to help facilitate the opportunities for the private sector so that action happens where action is needed. Myanmar. Let me also mention Myanmar, where we manage some of the country's largest multi-donor health funds. Here we ask, Can biotech and robotics ensure that people in remote villages are afforded the same access to routine vaccinations as those in the larger towns and cities? We've separately brought the private sector into this discussion in Myanmar. Here we are currently constructing or have constructed maternal health centers across the country with funding from Ooredoo, the country's mobile telecommunications operator. Nepal, we do different things. With innovative technology we call FieldSight, we have helped develop the first humanitarian digital platform designed for infrastructure monitoring and quality assurance. Built to work on mobile devices and in difficult-to-access locations, FieldSight is monitoring more than 30,000 houses in Nepal, water, hygiene, and sanitation sites, school, police stations, and other infrastructure. Of course, with the aim to gain effects on the health situation, clean water, and provide a safe environment for the population. To accelerate the achievement of the Agenda 2030, we need to promote the development of partnerships to increase our collective knowledge, test ideas, and expand dialogue. Engage with the private sector and new technologies is essential for the UN family and governments to fulfill their pledge to sustainable development. For some of you here today, I guess I'm not overdoing it if I'm stating the United Nations is not probably an obvious partner of choice. But I go back to my earlier statement. The Sustainable Development Goals are not just for the United Nations, it's for all of us. It actually includes all of you sitting here today. There are budding entrepreneurs in emerging markets that we can bridge access to. There are children and young families who would benefit from the promises that new technologies can bring. The countries we live in have committed to these ideals. It's up to each and every one of us to look at the resources and knowledge we carry and the goals we've set for ourselves. Technology today puts us in a better position to solve issues we've never been able to solve before. So I invite you today to join forces and let us push forward together and make sure that the digital transformation we're witnessing at this critical moment in history also work for those who are less fortunate than ourselves. Thank you very much for your attention.